Tell us about the custard pie and its ingredients.
Yeah, well, number one is we don't use a regular baker's pie. And throwing the pie in a cardboard plate is no good because that plate flying off detracts. So what we used to do is our prop man would get our baker, whoever was closest to the studio, to make pie crusts, 2 of them, with nothing in them. And take just a little flour and water, make a paste just enough to glue the 2 together.
Mm-hmm.
That was so that your fingers wouldn't go through the bottom of it. Now you fill it for about an inch of just flour and water mixed, which clings like glue and stretches. Now, on top of it, if I'm going to hit somebody in dark clothes, a brunette, you put a lemon meringue type of topping to it, garnished with whipped cream. When it was a light costume, or blonde, something like that, we put in blueberry, and then enough whipped cream just to splatter.
So you'd have a contrast.
That's right. Then when you threw the pie, you shot put up to a distance of about 8 foot. But from there on back, you brought that pie from here and right overhand. Because with a little practice, you can learn to make that pie come in this way and not crossways.
So you get a real splatter.
Yes, it comes in that way at you.
I notice here in your autobiography that at one stage of the custard and pie era, you threw a pie 27 feet, was it? And hit the target right on.
Caught the villain plumb in the puss with it.
How did you learn to control your body during the many difficult stunts that you performed in all those films? I'm not a gymnastic type myself, so I'd appreciate hearing exactly what you mean by that.
Any time that you leave the ground, it's your head will steer you.
And you don't think about your feet or your knees or your elbows or whatever.
Well, you generally like to know where you're going.
Yes, that's true. Well, that is part and parcel of the surprising fact.
I'm doing falls, and I do those in my sleep. Because I was brought up being thrown all over the stage. And not just rollovers. I mean, throw the length of the stage. And through chairs, tables, scenery. You used to do a thing coming out of a set house door on the stage. And we're grabbing the piece of scenery here and coming out and hold of the door here. And my own hand on my neck. In the front, it looks like somebody's got me by the neck. And I yell blue murder and shake the scenery and everything else, and my feet going in all directions. And my old man come up there to free me, and he used to kick over my head, and his foot come down there and knock me loose from there. And as I slid back across the stage this way, he saw that it was me. He had a hold of myself. He chased me right out of the theater. See?
This is when you were a youngster?
Yeah. And this one night, I was only about 8 or 9 years old at the Poli Theater in New Haven. When he kicked over my head, he misjudged it, and the back of his kneecap caught me right there, back of the head. And I stiffened and went out and fell straight back. And he didn't realize what was wrong. And my head hit the floor first. I'm out 18 hours.
Why did you never smile on stage or in your films?
Because as a kid, growing up with an audience, I'd simply learned that I was the type of comic that if I laughed at what I did, the audience didn't. And the more seriously I took my work or whatever I'd done, the bigger laughs I got. Well, by the time I was something like 9 and 10 years old, it was mechanical with me to work without smiling. So the time I went into proof of it, I go into pictures when I'm 21 years old. And after I started to get the name of Frozen Face, and Blank Pan, and things like that, we went in the projecting room and ran our first 2 pictures to see if I'd smiled. So you see, nobody, including my company, ever was conscious of it.
When did this marvelous hat come into your life?
It was very similar to the one I had on the stage. The one on the stage was beaten up so bad, didn't have much shape left. But when I went into pictures, every comedian in pictures wore a derby hat. So that's one thing I won't wear is a derby hat. So
Did you invent?
I got my hat back out there to make sure that brim stayed that way, pretty near flat. Take sugar and water, soak the brim with it, and let it dry. Stiffens it enough that you can do a lot with that hat, and won't get out of shape.
Did the hat evolve over a period of time, or did you invent the flattened
no, the first
version of it first time
This
out?
is the same hat. I mean the same type.
So that the top of the hat was brought right down to the brim.
Yeah, well, it was easy to handle. That's one reason I did it that way, see? Because first thing I learned when getting pictures says, never leave that scene without your hat. I didn't know why until I find it. See, one says, well, we shoot a scene here, and now as soon as we scene that we'll shoot a week from now will be on the screen ahead of the scene we did yesterday. Well, in that scene, I left my hat in there. And here I got my hat back on. Nothing matches. So never leave a scene without your hat. The girl may be tied to the railroad track or anything else, and you've run into the cops. Get your hat first, and then go save her. See?
Marvelous.
So, all right, Lloyd liked his straw hat.
And Charlie had his bowler.
Yeah, but every time he gets in the rough out of the scene, that's a hat gone. It's crushed. That's gone.
This one is
This
going
went
to
through
survive.
fire, earthquakes, floods, everything.
How did you plot your jokes? By talking it out among yourselves?
Yes. Yeah. Well, always when we set out to lay out a picture, says Gene here's got a good start. What is it? This, so forth, and so on. He said, I had 3 men in my scenario department. Chaplin had about the same, but Lloyd had 5 or 6. But we just, in our own little studio, so the head cameraman, the head electrician, the prop man, they're in the conferences the same as we are, talking about things, whether they like it or don't like it.
Try it out on each other.
Well, yeah, sure. And the minute we found something we liked, we says, that's a fine start. Says, now what's the finish? Well, when we found the finish, how to round that out, we never worked on the middle. We always figured the middle would take care of itself.
Let that happen.
We get off to a good start and have a good finish.
Was there any particular time when your best ideas came to you preparing a picture?
Generally in the bathroom.
Really?
Shaving was a great time to round out a routine.
And the bathtub has always been a great source of inspiration.
Yeah. You can daydream in a bathtub.
And of course, as a comedian on film, you had to depend, indeed, on your experiences with audiences in the theater.
But when that's just automatic with me. If I picked up something here and the coffee will run out of the bottom here, I'd probably hold it about what I thought they'll giggle at before I try to find out what happened to the cup.
Yes.
I played Shea's Theater in Toronto when it was an upstairs theater.
Upstairs, was it?
Yes. And the one in Buffalo was called Shea's Garden Theater, and the footlights were gas jets.
What period was that?
Electric lights hadn't come into them yet. So I played there one of my first years, so it had been about 1900.
What was your first professional appearance? That was the year before that, wasn't it?
The year before that in Wilmington, Delaware. It was my first official opening as a...
At what age?
Pro at 4 years old.
That pretty much makes you the dean of Hollywood film stars, I would say.
Pretty near. I don't know of anybody that passes me. In other words, I'm older professionally than Francis X. Bushman, Maurice Chevalier, Charlie Chaplin, Mary Pickford, Ed Wynn.
Our own Canadian Mary Pickford.
Yes. Older professionally than those people.
Well, I certainly think there ought to be a special title to go along with that one way or another.
Like they do it with the umpires in the big league.
We'll
become the Beans Reardon of the...
We'll hope somebody thinks of an adequate one for you soon enough.
Dean Keaton, I like that before.
Yes. What was that first film that attracted you, the year of the passing?
Called The Butcher Boy. And my first sequence in front of a camera is when I come into that grocery store, the Arbuckle behind the counter, and to buy a little bucket of 25 cents worth of molasses.
Oh, this was the finding the coin.
That's right, in the bucket.
In the bucket.
And I spilt molasses all over. I got my feet caught in them, and my hat got stuck on my head because he poured the molasses in my hat to find the quarter. When I put my hat back on to leave and got the bucket of molasses, he tipped his head and said, good day, and I start, and the hat won't move.
Well, now, you mentioned Roscoe, or Fatty Arbuckle, as audiences know him, and I notice in your autobiography that you describe him as your best friend.
Well, number one, see, he next to Chaplin, he was considered the best comedy director in pictures. For instance, Sennett's Tilly's Punctured Romance. Well, Arbuckle directed about half of that picture.
But didn't get credit for it.
No.
You made a great many films, actually, with Arbuckle, didn't you?
He was second to Chaplin as far as the box office went as a comedian. Lloyd passed him when Lloyd put on the glasses and the hat and stopped being Lonesome Luke, which is about 1919, someplace in there, 1918. He climbed overnight. Up to then, he didn't mean anything.
And Red Skelton was your favorite among associates at that time.
Yeah, I used to get mad at Skelton as well as anybody else. Skelton's first love was radio. And yet nobody could do a better scene on the screen than Skelton without opening his trap. But he'd do it anyhow. Ad lib. When I say radio was his love at the time, he'd go to his dressing room on the stage between scenes, and he wasn't worrying what he's going to do in the next scene. He'd go in there and start writing gags for Little Junior to say, or something for his radio script. Mm-hmm. The Marx Brothers, it was an event when you could get all three of them on the set at the same time. The minute you started a picture with the Marx Brothers, you hired 3 assistant directors, one for each Marx brother. Yet 2 of them, while you went to look for the third, one of the first 2 would disappear. And they were the same thing. They never worried what the next setup was going to be or what the routine or anything else is. We'll ad lib it when we get there. Or Chico always had his bookie on the phone. Groucho had some other excuse to be missing.
Yes.
Harpo was visiting the other sets to see who's working. Abbott and Costello never give the story a second thought. They says, when do we come and what do we wear? Then they find out that they start to shoot the picture what the script's about.
Yes.
Didn't worry about it. They didn't try to. Well, that used to get my goat because, my God, when we made pictures, we ate, slept, and dreamed them.
Yeah. Mr. Keaton, how did you come to get the name Buster?
Well, I was born with a tent show on a one-night stand in Kansas. My mother joined the show when I was 2 weeks old, and it was called the Keaton Houdini Medicine Show Company. Now, that's Harry Houdini, the handcuff king. He was the doctor and trickster of the outfit. My old man was the entertainer and comic. And when I was 6 months old, we're in some little town, small hotel, and I fell down a full flight of stairs at the bottom. They come running up. I sat up and just shook my head and shook it off and didn't cry. So they knew I wasn't hurt. And Houdini says that was sure a buster, meaning a fall, because that's the only time it was used. It meant a bronco buster or a fall. It was never used as a name. My father said, well, that would be a good name for him. It don't sound bad. So that's the way I got it.
You yourself had a very difficult period in that decade. You were divorced. You had lost a great deal of money.
Oh, and I drank too. That helped.
Telescope has been brought to you by General Motors of Canada, makers of Canada's most popular cars and trucks, and Frigidaire appliances.